Hello, everyone. Welcome to Publish Your Book in 2013. My name is Laura Lowell, and I am happy and very excited to be talking with you today. I am the founder and executive editor of the 42 Rules book series. I started the series as a result of an experience I had in 2007 when I was writing my first book, 42 Rules of Marketing. I learned so much through that process, and I realized that it didn't have to be as hard as it was for me. And I started the series with the hopes of helping other people, professionals, consultants, coaches, entrepreneurs, helping other people write books that help them build their brands and build their businesses. My background had always been in branding and marketing, and this was a really logical way for me to combine my areas of expertise with something that I love, which is writing books and helping others to do the same. So our focus today is going to be on how to help you get your book off of your to-do list and on its you're done list. What I'd like to start with is understanding a bit, helping you understand that the rules of publishing have completely changed. The industry is going through a transformation, much like we saw in the music industry or the movie industry. The internet and digital technology has really enabled the publishing industry to completely turn itself upside down. And as a result, you have so much more power than authors have ever had previously. Now, I want you to understand and be very clear about this. You are not going to get rich because of book royalties. It just doesn't happen that way. People have this perspective, oh, I'm going to write a book. It'll be in the bookstore. It'll be on Amazon. It'll be flying off the shelves, and I'll get these wonderful royalty checks every month. It doesn't really work that way. And I'm sorry if I'm the first person who had to tell you that, but it really doesn't work that way. What does happen, however, is that your books give you a credibility that nothing else can. And as a result of this, the incremental revenue you drive for your business through, additional products and services, through higher fees, through a lot of different incremental changes to your business, that's how you're going to make more money. That's how you're going to build your business and be more successful. Now, the trick is that most people think, oh, I could never write a book because I don't like writing, or I could never write a book because it's just so hard to do. Well, it's not. I'm going to share with you today some tips and tricks for different ways of writing your book that actually doesn't require you to take pen to paper. So that part should be very helpful for those of you who, you want to write a book, but writing's not your thing. But the other thing you need to understand is that writing your book is often the easiest part. It used to be that was the hardest part, right? Actually writing the book, finding all the content, putting your ideas together. Now that's not the case. Now the writing is the easiest part. Publishing is becoming easier and easier every day. The part that is the most challenging is making sure people know about your books. So Bowker is the organization that administers the ISBN numbers, the numbers associated with individual books. And they estimated that in 2012, there was over 15 million books published. That's crazy. Now, clearly, at least one of those 15 million should be yours in 2013. So let's just get that out of the way. One of these books is going to be yours this year. But the point is that there is more competition for people's reading time, whether it's for pleasure or professional reading. There is so much more competition out there, and that means that it's even harder to market your book than it has ever been before. A lot of people think, well, if I go with a traditional publisher, they're going to do all the marketing for me, and that is not the case. Marketers don't sell books, authors do. And with the 42 Rules series, what we've done is we've established a marketing infrastructure that authors plug into that makes it so much easier for them to get all of the basic marketing stuff covered. So, the rules are changing. It's easier than ever to write and publish a book. It's even easier to market the book. It's just a lot of work, and people underestimate the amount of work that it takes to actually get your book into people's hands, make sure that they know about it. Now, the interesting part is, even though the industry has gone through this profound change, and you hear about publishing houses closing and merging and ebooks and this and that, the actual process itself hasn't changed. You have to write your book. Somehow, some way, you have to physically put words on paper. You then have to publish it. You have to create a paperback, a hardback, an ebook, a physical copy of your book that you can distribute. And then you have to market it, as we were talking about. You have to make sure that people know about your book. We're going to talk about each of these steps in the process individually, and I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks, some best practices, so that you can learn from what I've learned over the past 7 years and get your book done this year. Because that is the goal of this session, is to give you the ideas so you can put your book on your it's done list instead of constantly having it on your to-do list. Okay, note to self. I want to write a book someday. So many people say that, and so few ever do. Now, I know I just told you that 15 million ISBN numbers were issued last year, but consider that in the total population of the world, it is a small, tiny fraction of a percent. And I really want to congratulate you for taking a really proactive step in the right direction to learn what you need to learn to get your book written this year. So without any further ado, we're going to jump right into it. Now, writing your book, as I said, does not have to be as painful as most people expect it to be. Yes, you can sit down with pen and paper and, slog through it, but you don't have to. There's a lot of different approaches now that technology enables us to use. I'll give you an example of crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing is when you ask people for their ideas and you integrate those into the book. You don't know these people. You throw a question out into the ether, through social media, through your network, whatever it is, and you get people's ideas, and these ideas become a part of your book. It's really, really fun. It's a great way of meeting new people and expanding your network and getting fantastic content in the process. My second book, 42 Rules for Working Moms, was a crowdsourced project. I put a question on LinkedIn. I said, if you're a working mom, what are the rules that you use to keep yourself sane? Assuming that any working mom is sane to begin with. I got so many responses that after 3 days I had to take the question down because I didn't know what to do with all this response. It was totally overwhelming. But it was also the best source of contacts that it allowed me to put together a book from different parts of the world, from different industries, different socioeconomic backgrounds, all over the place. And it's something that never would have been done if I hadn't crowdsourced the content for the book. So I encourage you to think about how you could use that to put your book together. Another trick that I'm going to share with you is the idea of recording and transcribing. Some people like to talk, me for example, and we find it really easy to schedule ourselves on a conference call. I use freeconferencecall.com, but you can use any of the free conference call services. There's tons out there. Schedule yourself a conference call. Talk to yourself. Tell the stories, answer the questions, things that you talk about all the time that are second nature to you. And then record that and have it transcribed. All of the conference call services offer some sort of transcription service. Have it transcribed and sent back to you. What you then have to do is edit, right? It's your words, it's your ideas. You have to translate between the spoken word and the written word because it's not the same. And you'll read it and you'll say, wow, do I really talk like that? And you do. And we all do, and we understand that. But it gives you a written document to work from, as opposed to trying to translate it out of your head into the keyboard, and that can be very difficult for some people. So this is a really fun, fast way of getting your content into a document that you can work with. Another thing that professionals need to consider is the idea of creating a blog book. Many of us have a blog. We spend a lot of time and energy writing our blog posts, doing a lot of research. They're typically about our area of expertise. So take those blog posts, compile them together, put a little structure around it, and you have the basics of your book already written. And again, what you're doing is you're rounding out the idea. Lots of ideas. I encourage you to try some, see what works for you. There's so many options, and you just need to see what sticks. Some things are going to work for some people, some things for another person. I'm going to show you some examples of what we've done in the 42 Rules series. I've talked to you about 42 Rules for Working Moms. Another example is 42 Rules for Sourcing and Manufacturing in China. Now, this could be a very dry, horrible topic. Rosemary Coates, the author, is the first to admit this. But I have to tell you, it is a really interesting read. And as the editor, I've read this book several times, so I know that it is actually very, very interesting. What Rosemary did is she interviewed, I don't know, 30-something executives throughout the industry, and she has some of the most interesting stories and anecdotes and experiences directly from these executives. And she included those interviews in her book, and they really make a very, challenging topic incredibly interesting. So I encourage you, like I said, to try some of these different approaches to writing your book and see what works for you. Another thing I want to make sure you're aware of when you're writing your book is that the most important part of your book that you will ever write is the title. You have seconds, maybe fractions of a second, to grab someone's attention, especially if they're searching online. I mean, think about yourself when you go to Amazon.com, right? You click around like crazy, and if something doesn't absolutely pop and speak to you, you're going to move on until you find something that does. That's what your title has to do. So I'm going to give you some steps that you can use to really write a compelling title that does its job, which is to get people to stop and look at it. The first thing you need to do is really clearly define your topic. And what I want you to do is I want you to be able to describe your topic in 3 to 5 words to someone from outside your industry. So think about your mom or your spouse or someone at your kid's school or someone at your gym who has no idea what you do for a living. I want you to be able to describe your topic to them in 3 to 5 words in a way that they really understand. Okay? Then once you have that defined, you know your space, then you have to know what everybody else is doing in your space. And this is where keywords and competition come in. In the world of online marketing, keywords in your title are what is going to have your book page pop in the search rankings. If people are online doing a Google search and your title is keyword sensitive or keyword optimized, you're going to come up better in those searches, and that's what you want. You also want to make sure that you put your title in the context of the competition. What are they writing about? What are they doing? What kind of titles do they have? You don't want to land right on top of another person's title. Even if it's not the same title, you don't want it to be too similar. So you really need to understand what the competition is doing. Now, there is a fabulous book by a woman named Sam Horn. The book is called Pop. And she is a master at wordsmithing and storytelling and creating creative uses of language. I highly recommend that you buy a copy of her book, that you use some of the exercises that she recommends to come up with a really unique and different title. Flip through her book. She spells it out. She has very specific exercises, and it's just wonderful, and you will come up with a half a dozen of fabulous ideas. Then the next thing you need to focus on is your subtitle. So subtitles on Amazon.com are included in the full name of the book. So your subtitle can do a lot of work for you. This can explain what's in it for the reader, who it's for, first of all, so the reader knows that it's targeted at them, and then what they're going to get out of it, right? What are they going to walk away with knowing that they didn't know before? So if you follow these 4 steps in writing your title, you're going to have something that really grabs somebody's attention in those fractions of a second that you have. Now, so you've written the title, right? Good for you. Now you've got to write the book. And I've outlined 5 steps that will help you write your book really fast. Now, really fast is relative. I've had some people in our series who have done this process in 6 weeks. I have some that have taken 2.5 years. So, you're probably somewhere in the middle. On average, it takes people about 6 months to complete their manuscript and the first phases of publication, which are copy editing and those sorts of things, just to set expectations for what your experience might be like. The first thing you need to do is your research, right? You need to know your space. You need to know the competition, as I said before. You need to know what's going on around you. You need to know, popular culture and all of these sorts of things. And you need to do your research. But then you need to pick a point and you need to stop. I recommend that you stop after step 4, which is asking for peer review, and we'll go through that in a minute. What often trips people up is they keep getting new information and new content, and they feel like they have to integrate that into their book. It's possible. However, you will ultimately never finish because there will always be new information. And at some point, you have to just stop the research. You have to write it, you have to revise it, and you have to be done. So the second step, once you've done your research, is to create an outline, right? And we all did this in school. You know, you have your main ideas and you break it out in supporting points, and that's basically the idea here. Know that your outline is going to change and change and change. As you start writing, you'll realize, ooh, this part needs to come after this section because otherwise it just doesn't make sense. Or, ooh, I need to add something here because otherwise no one knows what I'm talking about. I haven't defined it yet. So it will change, it will move around, but if you have an outline, you have a structure to follow, and you have a way of getting to that first draft, and your first draft is that, it's a draft. And I want you to, once you have your outline, I want you to start writing. I do not want you to edit your own work. That's what editors like me are for. That's what copy editors are for. That's what proofreaders are for. Editing is not your responsibility. Writing the content in a structured, coherent way is your responsibility. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to get it out of your head, get it into the computer so that the editors can do their work and make it fabulous. Once you've written it, and it's been lightly copy edited, so you're not embarrassed by your grammar or anything, now is the time that you want to ask for peer input. You want people to look at your work and give you honest feedback. It's really better to know now if something is not hitting the mark than once it's on Amazon and getting terrible reviews. You don't want that to happen. So I suggest finding between 5 and 10 of your peers in your industry who know what you're talking about and asking them if they would review your content. You're not asking them to copy edit. You are not asking them to look for spelling and grammar and so forth. You're very specifically asking them to review your content, your supporting points, the tone and voice of the piece. Is it logically structured and does it make sense? Are there enough stories and anecdotes? That's what you want their input for. And a little trick is you may not want everybody to read the whole manuscript because that's asking a lot. You may want to break it down into chapters and have a couple people read each chapter. The other thing you might want to do is don't send them a Word document because then they feel compelled to edit. Send them a PDF. And that way, you can edit a PDF, obviously, but most people won't because it's a little bit more work. So if you send them a PDF of select chapters, you are much more likely to get them to complete a review. Once you have their input, now it's your time to revise and finalize. Get it done. Everybody's going to have an opinion. Your peer reviewers are going to have an opinion. Your spouse, your friends, your colleagues, everybody's going to have an opinion. Ultimately, yours is the only one that counts, and you get to vote because it's your book. So you need to take all the opinion. You need to align it with your unique point of view and make sure that's what comes out in the final manuscript. Okay? And that manuscript is what's going to go through the production publishing process, which I will be talking about in detail in a subsequent webinar. There are, this is a fairly basic, straightforward process, but you need to research and then stop. You need to ask for peer review. That is so critical, and so many people don't do it. You need to not edit your own work. If you remember those couple of things, your writing experience will be so much better. And then we can move on to talking about publishing. Now, as I said at the very beginning, it is a whole new world out there. Technology has changed everything, and power is really shifting towards the author. Best-selling New York Times authors some of them are only doing ebooks now. Wow, that's shocking, right? Some of the most popular books, 50 Shades of Grey, regardless of what you think of the book, was launched as an ebook only and then picked up by a major publisher. Things are changing, and this really, really works in your favor. A couple of things I want you to consider. When you're evaluating your publishing options, which I'm going to talk about next, the most important thing is for you to understand what's important for you. Like the music and the film industries that I mentioned earlier, the entire landscape has shifted, and things that we wouldn't even have thought of a couple of years ago are pretty commonplace now. Ebooks, for example. People are publishing ebooks like crazy. That 15 million number that I mentioned earlier doesn't even include most of the ebooks. So that just exponentially grows the number of books that have been published. So really consider what your objective is and what's important to you when you're evaluating your options. I'm going to focus on 3 different publishing models. The traditional model that we're all pretty familiar with, big New York City publishing houses. They use agents to bring them manuscripts. Authors need to do very comprehensive book proposals, which can sometimes take as long to write as the book itself. And that's kind of the model. The author goes to the agent goes to the publisher accepts or rejects the proposal, and then the author starts writing the book with guidance from the publisher and their editors. There's also the do-it-yourself self-publishing model, where there is no outside expertise necessarily. You're kind of in it on your own. But as a self-published author, you have so much control. In the traditional model, in a lot of cases, you give up some of the control to the publisher. Of course, it depends on what you negotiate, but you don't have to negotiate with yourself when you're a self-published author, right? You can decide what you do, when you do, how you do it. And, that's not the case necessarily in the traditional model. There's also this kind of middle-of-the-road hybrid model, which I call independent publishing, which leverages the new technology, things like print on demand and digital publishing and ebooks and the new approaches to marketing. That's really the niche of the independent publisher. They've really embraced the new technology. They've embraced the new business model, and these independent publishers are springing up all over the place. Typically, they have a niche focus, right? They will focus on one type of book, either a business book or memoirs or biographies or whatever it is. But they have, a really interesting mix of experience and expertise that they can share with you. Now, there's some things that you need to know about each of these models. The column on the left-hand side consists of, the different elements of the publishing business that you need to consider. Access, expertise, lead times, copyrights and royalties are huge issues. And then access to a distribution network and access to marketing capabilities. The critical question to ask yourself about all of these publishing options is what's important to you. And there's 3 things that I always evaluate when I'm helping authors choose between these models. One is control. If you're a control freak like me, self-publishing can seem like a fabulous option. I'll tell you though, when I was writing my first book, I was convinced I was going to self-publish. And after learning and going through the process and realizing that I had to hire a copywriter, a copy editor, I had to hire a graphic designer for the cover, I had to hire someone else to do the interior page layout, I had to hire somebody else to do the proofreading, and then I had to talk with a printer about the kind of print style that I wanted, the typeface that I wanted, the font, for goodness sakes. When the printer asked me what kind of paper I wanted, that's when I completely lost it. And I decided that self-publishing was not for me, no matter how much control I had to give up. And I ended up choosing the independent model, and I work with a publisher called Happy About, which is the publisher of the 42 Rules series, and we have a fabulous relationship. They give me all the control that I want, but all the support that I need. It's a very wonderful relationship. So control is the first thing. The second thing is timing. How important is it to you to have your book to market fast, right? If you're self-published, you can get it there really, really quickly. Same with independent publishing. Independent publishing, typically the publishing process itself, once they get a finished manuscript, is between 2 and 3 months. It's very fast. And it all depends on how long it takes you to write the manuscript. With the traditional model, they're still pretty slow. It takes them anywhere from 18 to 24 months to produce a book, and that is after they have been introduced to the author from the agent. And that agent book proposal process can take another year, maybe more. So, it varies widely in terms of the timing of when you get your book to market. So you want to consider timing as well. And then the third thing you want to evaluate across all of these different models is the resources. both your resources, how much money do you have to put into this, and the other party's resources. So the independent publisher or the traditional publisher, what kind of resources are they going to bring to bear on your book process? In the traditional model, people think that publishers do, these big, grand book marketing programs for their authors. And yeah, if you're J.K. Rowling, yeah, of course they do. If you were you and me, first-time author, they don't. They don't set up book tours. They don't hire a publicist. They don't do those sorts of things for unknown authors. They wait until you've had some success, and then they invest in marketing. The independent publishers, what these folks have done is they have created online marketing infrastructure, which really helps first-time authors be able to do all of the right stuff up front. And this is what we've done with 42 Rules. We've created a marketing infrastructure with the website, the e-commerce, the webcasts, all of the stuff that you need to successfully market your book. And we included it in the program that we offer to people. So when you're looking at your different publishing options, you need to consider the level of control that you want, the timing you're going to be comfortable with, and the amount of resource that both you and your partner have to put against your book publishing project. Now we're going to jump into marketing your book. So you've got it written, you've decided on a publisher, you've gone through the publishing process, and now you're faced with launching your book. This slide looks like what I wish people's responses were to me. I wish this is what the world really looked like, but it's not. When I ask people, when did you begin thinking about marketing? Where are you in your marketing process? Typically they say, oh, I've done a little bit, but really I haven't really started yet. Okay, that's not good. That makes me really frightened. You need to start thinking about marketing your book before you even write it. You need to understand your audience, what they want from you, what your expertise is, and how you can combine all those things. What you also need to do is begin talking about your book before you've even written it. So what I mean by that is, once you've committed that you are going to write your book, you need to tell everybody about it as often and as frequently as you can. You just need to talk about it everywhere and to anyone. When someone asks, how are you? You need to say, wow, I am great. I just finished, chapter 3 of my book. They're going to be like, wow, I didn't know you were writing a book. How great. Tell me about it. And you never know where those conversations are going to lead. Remember, you're writing this book to help you build your brand and your business. And you never know where those conversations are going to lead. You could meet someone in line at the grocery store, and they could be the CEO of a startup that you've been trying to get access to for months. You never know. Stranger things have happened. You want to include it in your email signature. Think about how many emails you send out on a daily, weekly basis. You are touching a tremendous number of people, and a lot of them are your prospective clients or your existing clients or people who could lead you to a new client. And you need to give them the opportunity to know that you're writing your book. So include it in your email signature. You say, Laura Lowell, founder of the 42 Rules book series, author of the upcoming title, insert your title here. And when I was writing my books, I would get responses. Every week I would get 3 or 4 responses. Wow, I didn't know you were doing that. That's cool. Tell me more. Include it in your online profiles, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever online network you prefer and you spend time on. Make sure it's in your profile there. Make sure people know that that's something that you're doing. This is good for 2 reasons. One, if you're like me, the more people know about it, the more likely I am to finish it, because I have all these people going, wow, Laura's writing a book. That's cool. And then people start asking you, how's the book coming? And I was just shamed into finishing it really fast because I didn't want to have to tell people that I didn't finish it. So that's the first thing. It's self-motivating. The second thing is, this is visibility. So when you come to actually launch your book, these people have heard about it, they're excited for you, and they're very likely to participate in any kind of launch that you would put together. Now, let's talk about what your book launch can look like. Remember I said before that marketing is about making sure people know that your book is available. They have to know about it. There's lots of different things that you can do. What you need to evaluate is what is the right set of things for you to do based on 3 criteria. One is how much time do you have available to dedicate to your book launch, book marketing? What is your expertise? If you're a marketing person, this stuff is going to come like second nature to you. If you're an accountant, this stuff might be your version of hell, and you could not imagine ever doing any of this, in which case you want to hire someone or some group of people to help you do this, because otherwise you won't do it and your book will not be successful. And then you also want to consider your resources, and that includes your time as well as money. Now, what I've outlined here is a good, better, best strategy. I recommend at a minimum that you invest in the good column. You need to have your book on Amazon, clearly. You need to have an author page on Author Central, which is a part of Amazon.com. You need to incorporate it into your online profiles, your email signatures. All of your social media needs to be featuring your book in an appropriate way. So, don't go screaming, 50 times a day, buy my book, because people will turn you off. But when you launch it, a couple times a week, highlight it with, articles that you've written or articles that you've read that you want people to know about that tie to your book topic. Do subtler things like that. Then the other things that are really important to do is you need to get your book into the hands of your prospects. So do a direct mail campaign. Get 100 copies of your book, 200 copies of your book, whatever it takes. Typically, authors get pretty good discounts. And you buy them, and you mail them with a nice handwritten note to your prospects and existing customers. Once they know that you have a book, the relationship changes. You change in their eyes. You have a level of credibility that you didn't have before. And I'll tell you a story. When I wrote 42 Rules of Marketing, I had been trying to get a meeting with this guy that I had worked with at a previous client, and he had changed jobs, and he was super busy, and we would email several times a month, but this went on for a year and a half, and I could not get a meeting with the guy. He would respond to me. I mean, he was very proactive. We were totally getting along, but everybody was just too busy. I sent him a copy of my book, 42 Rules of Marketing, and a week later, I was in his office with the executive VP and a signed PO, and his book was sitting on the desk. The book is what made him stop and say, wow, I really need to make time for this. This would have a big impact on our business to have Laura involved. And I was able to close that deal in a matter of a week, as opposed to the year and a half that I had been trying to just get a meeting. So doing that direct mail will have a very specific impact on your business. Then once you've done all the good stuff, then you can look at adding and layering on. Pick some things from the better column, pick some things from the best column. You want to make sure that at a minimum, you've done the stuff in the good column. And then as you get more resources, as you get more time, as you get more sophisticated in your marketing, you can add to the process. You want to make sure that as you're selecting these things, that you're focusing on things that you're interested in. If you're not interested in doing a webcast or a podcast, you're not going to do it. So even if it's on your list of marketing activities, it won't get done. So better to focus on things that you enjoy doing and make those things happen. Now, there are some common mistakes that people make that I want to highlight for you. First of all, as you're writing your book, remember we talked about our 5-step writing process, you need to always remember who you're writing for, who your audience is, what they need from you, what their problems are. Get that picture firmly planted in your brain and have it there front and center when you're writing and reviewing and researching about anything. You need to not kid yourself that if you write your book, people will flock to Amazon to buy it. Typically, that's not the way it works. Your families and friends will go and buy it because they love you and they're excited for you. But the rest of the world needs some prodding. And that's where the marketing comes in. And that's why I said at the very beginning, that is the most important part of this process. People get really bogged down in the writing because they think it's really hard, but it doesn't have to be. They get really wrapped around the axle about which publishing option do they choose, and I walked you through different ways of evaluating your different options. But the key is you need to make sure that people know about your book. And a lot of times you can't do that by yourself. You can't market yourself. If you want to do proactive PR and pitch to specific media agencies, you can't call them up and say, hey, I'm Laura, I'm really cool, and I wrote this book that you really want to interview me about. That is so disingenuous and silly. People would react very badly to that. So in some cases, you need to hire professionals who know how to do that stuff and can do it on your behalf. You need to embrace the idea that you are a marketer. As soon as you become an author, you become a marketer, because publishers really don't sell books. Authors sell books, and the more you are engaged in that process, the more books you're going to sell, and the more of an impact it's going to have on your brand and your business. So I hope you've enjoyed our discussion. I want you to remember that the rules of the publishing industry have changed for the better. They've made it so much easier for you to actually write your book, and you can do it this year. You can go from having an idea in your head today to being on Amazon in a few months. I guarantee you can make that happen. And writing your book is the best marketing investment you're ever going to make, but you have to do it. And there's no time like now, so I'm going to make you a very special offer. Go check out 42rules.com/mybook. On that page, you will find a recorded version of this webinar. If it was so fascinating, you have to listen to it again. You will also find a program overview about 42 Rules, how we're structured, and how we might be able to help you. If that's interesting to you, I encourage you to complete our 6 questions, which is our version of a book proposal. Very simple and sweet. Go ahead and complete that, send it to me, email it to me directly, and we will schedule your 30-minute consultation. We will talk about your book project, your publishing options, how you may want to write it. If you decide to do 42 Rules, excellent. If you decide on another publishing model, excellent. I wish you all of the best with your book project, and anything that I can do to help, I am more than willing to do that. Complete your 6 questions and send them to me, and we can talk about everything related to your book project. So thank you very much. I've enjoyed talking with you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.